It has been said that a sound mind in a sound body is a short but full description of a happy state. A sound mind in a sound body is also an essential factor in the science of personal achievement. The 15th principle of this program centers on the maintenance of sound health. Physical health is crucial to success because anything that affects the body will affect the mind in some way. This point is so essential that Dr. Hill has termed the individual a human mind-body. Fostering the relationship between the two is the focus of this lesson.
The physical body is a house which the Creator provided to serve as a dwelling place for the mind. It is the most perfect mechanism ever produced, and it is practically self-maintaining. It has a brain which serves as the center of the nervous system and the coordinator of all bodily activity, the receiver of all sense perception, and the organ which, by means as yet unexplained by science, coordinates all perception, knowledge, and memory into new patterns which we now call thought. The brain is the commander of all voluntary movements of the body, the controller of all involuntary movements carried on through the subconscious section, such as breathing, the heartbeat, digestion, circulation of the blood, distribution of nervous energy, and the like. It is the storehouse of all knowledge, the interpreter of the influences of environment and thought. It is the most powerful and the least understood organ of the body. The brain is the housing place of the subconscious section of the mind as well as of the conscious section, but the energy and the intelligence with which thought is produced flow into the brain from the great universal storehouse of infinite intelligence, the brain serving only as a distributor of this energy. Among its other duties, the brain operates a first-class department of chemistry through which it breaks up and assimilates the food taken into the stomach, liquefies the food, and distributes it through the bloodstream to every part of the body where it is needed for maintenance and repair of the individual cells. All of this service is performed automatically, but there are certain simple aids which the individual can give the brain that will help it to maintain sound physical health. I will mention some of these aids. First, mental attitude. Inasmuch as the brain is the unchallenged boss of the entire physical body, we should recognize at the outset that sound physical health demands a positive mental attitude. Sound health begins with a sound health consciousness, just as financial success begins with a prosperity consciousness. And let it here be emphasized that no one ever succeeds financially without that prosperity consciousness, nor does one enjoy sound physical health without a health consciousness. Ponder this statement thoughtfully, for it conveys a truth that is of paramount benefit in the maintenance of sound physical health. To maintain a health consciousness, one must think in terms of sound health, not in terms of illness and disease. For we must emphasize that whatever the mind dwells upon, the mind brings into existence, whether it be financial success or physical health. Emile Coué, the French psychologist, gave the world in one sentence a very simple but practical formula for the maintenance of a health consciousness. Day by day, in every way, I am getting better and better. He recommended that this sentence be repeated thousands of times daily until the subconscious section of the mind picked it up, accepted it, and began to carry it out to its logical conclusion in the form of sound health. The wise ones smiled, and not too tolerantly, when they heard of the Coué formula. The not-so-wise accepted it in good faith, put it to work in earnest, and discovered that it produced marvelous results, because it started them on the road toward the development of a health consciousness. And here is the reason why a positive mental attitude is essential for the maintenance of sound health. First, all thought energy, whether it is positive or negative, is carried to every cell of the body and there deposited as energy on which the cells operate. Second, the energy of thought is carried to the cells of the body through the nervous system and the bloodstream, for it is a known fact that the body mixes the energy of thought with every particle of food that is assimilated and made ready for circulation in the bloodstream. It is a well-known fact that Any form of worry, fear, anger, jealousy, or hatred that one may experience while eating will cause the food to ferment in the stomach without becoming assimilated, and indigestion is the result. To maintain a positive mental attitude suitable for the development and maintenance of a sound health consciousness, the mind must be kept free of negative thoughts and influences through self-discipline and established habits. There must be no griping or fault-finding that affects the digestive organs. There must be no sustained hatred, for hatred attracts reprisals in kind and upsets digestion. There must be no fear. It indicates friction in human relationships, lack of harmony and understanding within one's mind, and discourages digestion. There must be no talk about illness and disease, for that leads to the development of the worst of all diseases, a disease known to the doctors as hypochondria, which means, in the language of the layman, imaginary illness. Eating habits. This subject is worthy of an entire book, but inasmuch as there are many well-written books on this subject, I shall here confine myself to a few simple recommendations which are on the must list of all who would enjoy sound health. First, there must be no overeating. It overworks the heart, liver, kidneys, and the digestive system. A simple way to observe this admonition is the habit of getting up from the table before one is thoroughly satisfied. The habit will be a little difficult to acquire, but once it has been developed, it will pay off in big dividends, consisting in many benefits, among them a great saving in doctor's bills. Overeating is a form of intemperance which may be, and often is, just as injurious as intemperance in drinking alcoholic beverages or the taking of narcotics. One must eat a balanced ration consisting of at least a fair proportion of fruits and vegetables, because these contain many vital mineral elements which nature requires in the building and the maintenance of the physical body. So we see that by eating properly and thinking correctly, we can go a long way toward keeping the doctor away. Thinking with a positive mental attitude is your individual responsibility. No one can do this for you. But when it comes to eating properly, there are many sources from which you can get dependable help. Also, there are many fine books on the maintenance of sound health through proper eating. Specialists in sound health maintenance have produced food supplements and vitamins which supply everything that nature needs to keep one healthy. In fact, the vitamin industry has become a major business enterprise, and it is helping millions of people to live longer and live better. Do not try to be your own doctor, but consult a specialist on food supplements and get dependable counsel on how to keep yourself healthy by eating properly and making sure that your food is supplemented with the right kind of vitamins. Eat right and think right, and you will always feel bright. You will be able to look into the future with brighter hopes. You will enjoy an abiding faith that will give you greater success in your business or occupational duties. Your home life will be happy for you and your family. You will find yourself free from fears and worries, and you will enjoy a power in your mind that can meet every problem you encounter. You will make friends as you never made them before, and last but not least, you will recognize a closer relationship with your Creator, who intended that you should be healthy and enjoy the full powers of your own mind.
Coordinating the functions of the mind and the body is one brick in the foundation of success. Coordinating our actions with our fellow man is equally important if we're to be happy people and high achievers. The 16th principle of the science of personal achievement is that of cooperation or teamwork. Cooperation is a priceless asset. To get it, you have to give it.
The road that leads to Happy Valley has many fellow travelers on it. You will need their cooperation, and they will need yours. Remember also that there will be other generations that will follow your generation, and their lot in life will depend largely on the kind of inheritance that we of this generation leave to them. The cooperation we engage in today may make this country more livable for our children and for the children of other men who have a right to expect something from us besides a mountain of public debts. For the present generation and the generation which is yet unborn, who will one day follow in our footsteps, we must become bridge builders in the spirit expressed by the poet who wrote, "An old man traveling a lonely highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm deep and wide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, for the sullen stream had no fears for him. But he turned when he reached the other side, and builded a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," cried a fellow pilgrim near, "you are wasting your strength and building here. Your journey will end with the ending day, and you will never again pass this way. You have crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you a bridge at eventide?" And the builder raised his old gray head. "Good friend, on the path I have come," he said, "there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This stream which has been as naught to me, to that fair-haired boy may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him." Remember, you who appropriate this philosophy for the personal benefits you will gain from the men who provided it, that you owe something to those who will follow you. This nation must go on. The American standard of living must be maintained and raised even higher. Our system of free enterprise must be preserved. Our form of democracy must be protected, and our schools and churches must be given a firm foundation. Our sources of financial income must be made secure for the benefit of those who will follow us, just as they have been preserved for us by those who have preceded us. And the miracle of this spirit of unselfish cooperation consists in the fact that it will provide greater benefits for this generation as well as help the generations which will follow. Thus, in serving as bridge builders for coming generations, we shall be preparing ourselves for the better things of life, which can come only through friendly cooperation. We are all bound in a common cause, and no matter what misfortunes may overtake our nation, the burdens will fall heavily on the shoulders of each of us. We can lighten these burdens by acquiring and expressing the spirit of unselfish cooperation in all of our relationships. And to paraphrase the sentiment expressed by Benjamin Franklin, we must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately. Until we become inspired with this broader spirit of cooperation, the spirit which recognizes the oneness of our people and the fellowship of all mankind, we shall not be in a position to benefit individually by the principle of cooperative effort. Greed and selfishness are no part of this spirit.
The motives that inspire cooperation include increased compensation and promotion. Recognition and praise also prompt teamwork. Andrew Carnegie encouraged cooperation based on 4 principles. First, he established a monetary motive through promotions and bonuses. Second, he used a question system to replace offensive reprimands. Through carefully directed questions, he led the employee to reprimand himself. Third, he always had 1 or more men in training for his job, and some of them acquired it. And fourth, he never made decisions for his employees. Instead, he encouraged them to make their own decisions and then be responsible. Cooperation in even small matters can lead to major rewards. One example is the story of the man who turned 2 sharpened pencils into a $12 million fortune.
Our story begins in the New York City Bank, where the founder of General Motors, William C. Durant, went one Saturday afternoon to cash a check. He arrived a few minutes too late. The doors had been closed, but he hammered on the door until a bank clerk opened it and told him that while the doors had been closed, the vaults had not been, and the check was cheerfully cashed. The young bank teller who opened the door and cashed the check was Carroll Downs, who handled the situation so pleasantly that he attracted the special attention of Mr. Durant. Young Downs was invited to join the staff of Mr. Durant in a minor capacity at a salary but slightly higher than he had been receiving in the bank. He accepted the job and was given a desk in the rear of a very large room where more than a score of people worked. At the end of the first day on his new job, a gong was sounded at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when all the other employees jumped and ran for the door, each one scrambling to be the first one out. Well, young Downs sat still, waiting perhaps to keep from being stampeded by the dashing herd until all the employees were gone. And while he was sitting there meditating and wondering why everyone was in such a hurry to get away, Mr. Durant came out of his private office, looked as if he were searching for something. "Can I be of help to you, Mr. Durant?" young Downs inquired. Why, yes, Durant replied. "I would like to have a pencil." Downs took 2 pencils from his desk, walked over to a pencil sharpener on the wall, and put a neat point on each pencil, then handed them to Mr. Durant. "Thanks," said Mr. Durant, and he turned to go back into his office. "Then," said Downs, "Mr. Durant turned around and looked me squarely in the eyes for a few seconds. Not a word was spoken, but something conveyed to me the thought that those 2 pencils had started a chain of events worth watching. And," he continued, "I made up my mind then and there that from that moment on I would never leave my desk until Mr. Durant left the office at the close of the day's work. I kept that up until Mr. Durant got into the habit of calling on me when he wanted something done. And the more I did for him outside of the regular line of my duties, the more I placed him under obligation to me. I hardly need to tell you that this is a far cry from the policy of the average employee. Well, young Downs was transferred from one job to another for more than a year, probably to give him an opportunity to find out just where he fitted into the picture to best advantage. Then one day, to his great surprise, he was called into Mr. Durant's office and told that he had been chosen to go over to New Jersey and supervise the installation of machinery in a new automobile assembling plant the company had just bought. When Mr. Durant asked him if he thought he could do the work, he replied, "Well, if you trust me to do the job, you may be sure I will do it, Mr. Durant." "All right," said Durant. "The job is yours. It will take you about a month. When the work is done, come back and tell me how you get along." Well, he did exactly what any student of mine would have done under the circumstances. He went out and hired an experienced engineer to go with him and help him install the machinery. He thereby made use of the principle of the mastermind. 3 weeks later, just 1 week earlier than Mr. Durant thought the job would require, Downs reported back to the New York office. The job was finished. When he arrived at the office, he was told that Mr. Durant wished to speak with him immediately. As he entered Durant's office, Durant said, "Well, Downs, you've lost your job while you were away." "I lost my job?" Downs exclaimed. "And for what cause, may I ask?" Well, we'll not discuss that just now," said Durant. "Go back and clean out your desk, then come back and talk with me. And by the way, you will see your successor's name on the glass door of that corner office as you go by." Well, imagine young Downs' surprise when he looked at that door and saw the sign which read, "Carroll Downs, General Manager." He rushed back to Mr. Durant's office and asked the meaning of the sign. "It means just what it says," Durant replied. "You have passed your final test in this company, and you have made the grade successfully. So you are now general manager, and your starting salary is $50,000 a year." But Downs' salary was only a portion of his compensation. His association with the great industrialist threw him into contact with opportunity after opportunity to make money on the outside of his job. He developed these opportunities into a $12 million fortune. Downs was no genius, and he had just an average personality, but he did have one thing which his fellow employees did not have, and that was a complete training in my philosophy of personal achievement. It was no mere accident that he placed 2 nice sharp points on those pencils. It was no accident that he gave Mr. Durant 2 pencils when he only asked for 1. It was no mere accident that he thought of employing an experienced engineer to help him do a job he knew he could not do alone.
Success is no accident, but the result of established habits of thought and action. This lesson will explain the law by which you acquire habits and how you can use this law to your greatest benefit. The 17th principle of the science of personal achievement is the law of cosmic habit force. Cosmic habit force, or universal intelligence, is the way the universe is balanced through established patterns or habits, from the forces of nature to individual thought patterns. Under this rule, positive thought habits attract physical counterparts of the same nature, and negative thoughts draw negative manifestations. Based on Emerson's essay on compensation, Napoleon Hill developed this principle to connect all the other principles in the science of personal achievement.
The purpose of this entire course has been designed to enable one to establish habits that lead to financial security, health, and peace of mind necessary for happiness. In this lesson, we examine briefly the established law of nature, which makes all habits permanent. With the application of the principles of this philosophy, one may set up in the pattern of any desired habit, after which the habit is taken over by cosmic habit force and made to carry on automatically. One of the most astounding of all of the facts available to mankind is this, that the Creator gave man control, absolute, unchallenged, and unchallengeable control over but one thing, just one, and that is the right of choice. You can choose any pattern you desire by which to guide your life, and you can change that pattern as often as you choose. It would be extremely unfortunate if a man couldn't change his habits. If you had to take what nature sent you over with and couldn't modify that and change it, it'd be extremely fortunate. There would be no use for a science of personal achievement course. As a matter of fact, there couldn't be such a thing. It would be valueless unless you could use it for the purpose of converting your life into an image based upon habits voluntarily established. Now let's see some of the habits that are fixed by cosmic habit force. Well, first of all, the stars and planets as they are established in their fixed course. Isn't it an astounding thing to recognize that the astronomers, understanding the law of astronomy, they can foretell the exact relationship of given planets and stars 100 or 2 years in advance? They couldn't do that unless there was a fixed pattern for the operation of this universe. We know there is. Man can fix his own pattern. He can make it anything he chooses. And most people, not understanding the law of cosmic habit force, not having the benefit of guidance of this philosophy, they fix their habits based upon what? By ill health, misery, unhappiness, fear, failure, poverty, and all of the things that people don't want. Just as sure as you are here in this room, the predominating thoughts that you bring into your mind from day to day forms the habit that will guide your life. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a penny and $1 million. It doesn't know the difference between success and failure and doesn't give a hang, because the individual has already been prepared and given when he came over to this side, giving everything that he needs with which to control his earthly destiny. He can't control what happened before he came over. He can't control what happens after he leaves here, but he certainly has predominating right of influence over his entire destiny while he's on this plane. Now that's an astounding thing to recognize. But a man doesn't control his destiny on this plane by accident, nor by haphazard procedures. He does it by having definite plans. He repeats those plans over and over in his own mind until they are picked up by the subconscious mind, and there the subconscious mind undoubtedly is under the influence of cosmic habit force. Everything is under this law of cosmic habit force. Now, if a student doesn't understand that he can set up his own habits and that there is a law that will help him carry them out, if he isn't taught that, if he doesn't get that basic truth, he hasn't got a good foundation on which to build and use this philosophy. You must understand it. It wouldn't avail you anything at all if you just read this philosophy and said, I agree with it, but didn't do anything about it. If you didn't start building a pattern for yourself based upon these 17 principles. you know that that pattern is going to be picked up by the law of cosmic habit force in exact proportion to the extent that you are enthusiastic over it and that you have faith in connection with it. Along with the profound gift of the Creator, the gift of the right of choice, and complete control over the mind, the Creator has provided the means by which one may take full benefit of this gift. It consists of the law of cosmic habit force, by which any self-made habit will be taken over and made into fixations which operate automatically. Now, here are the conditions necessary to make use of the law of cosmic habit force. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number one, there must be a purpose and a plan for its fulfillment worked out by the individual. That's covered in lesson number 1. The law of cosmic habit force is not going to benefit you unless you give it guidance and direction. And you give it guidance and direction by laying out a plan of what it is you want to accomplish, writing it down, submitting it to your subconscious mind through continuous repetition. And second, the plan must be properly timed according to the nature and extent of the purpose. While I was out in Detroit, a former student or fan of mine called me on the telephone. He first tried to get to see me at the auditorium, which Mr. Cowan would let him do, but he finally got through and got me on the telephone. He said, "Mr. Hill, I am very much disappointed in your philosophy." I said, "Yes? Give me the details." Well, he said, "I got Think and Grow Rich about 6 months ago. I read it 2 or 3 times. I laid out a definite plan, like you said. I put it on paper, and it doesn't work, and I'm losing confidence in it." I said, "What was the plan? Read it to me." He said, "My plan was to have $1 million within 1 year." I said, "Yes? What did you intend to give for the $1 million?" Well, he said, "Everything I have." I said, "Brother, it wasn't enough." It wasn't enough. Now, you see, he had an entirely wrong concept of the whole philosophy. We don't run into people like that often, but now and then you will find one who expects that all he's got to do is to read this philosophy and presto, the wand of success will be put into his hand. It doesn't work that way. Why do you suppose the Creator gave man control, complete control over but one thing, and that is the power to use his own mind? Don't you suspect the Creator intended for that prerogative to be used? He certainly didn't give it to you to fret away through idleness. He didn't mean for it to atrophy and die through disuse. He wanted you to use that. And if the Creator did give you control over but one thing, he must have had in mind that this one thing would be all that you would need, and it is. If you take possession of your own mind and direct it to ends of your own choice, systematically, according to this philosophy, you are bound to make your life exactly what you want it to be. Next, there must be constant repetition of the purpose. That's why I have my 10 invisible guides. I can't go around from day to day devoting all of my time telling my subconscious mind what I want it to do. I've got a set of invisible guides that do that for me. There must be constant repetition of the purpose under highly established emotionalized conditions, such as faith and enthusiasm, until the pattern of the purpose is clearly fixed in the subconscious mind. And on that subject of enthusiasm, I couldn't say too much to warn you against the danger of allowing your enthusiasm to run away with you. It's just as dangerous to have over-enthusiasm as it is to have under-enthusiasm. And if I had to choose between the two, I'd take the under-enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a dangerous thing. The very moment you go into a state of ecstasy, anybody who understands the operation of the mind finds that the windows and the doors of your mind are wide open, and he can walk right in on you. I had that demonstrated very forcefully a good many years ago when I was conducting a school of advertising and salesmanship at the Bryant Stratton College in Chicago. My friend Elbert Hubbard had just gone down on the Lusitania and had been drowned. And immediately his public relations people got busy and started advertising his series of books called Little Journeys. I was on his list, of course. They sent me a letter saying that they would be delighted to send me a photograph of the late Elbert Hubbard with his autograph on it if I would send in for it. Well, I sent in for it, And just in a little while, two high-powered salesmen came in to deliver the autographed photograph. One of them was a high-powered salesman. The other was a trainee. He was training the other fellow how to do it. And they said they had come to deliver the photograph, and boy, I went into a state of ecstasy. I started selling them Elmer Hubbard like nobody's business. And when I got through, this train man said, well, Mr. Hill, we knew that you not only want the photograph, but you would want your friend's set of little journeys. And here's the order, and it costs so much. And then I let out a horse laugh. I said, well, I have been teaching my people not to be swayed too much with enthusiasm, and here I've fallen into my own trap. And by that time, this master salesman said to the trainee, said, let's get out of here. In other words, I was just ruining his trainee, don't you know? I had overexposed myself by being too enthusiastic, by doing too much talking instead of listening. I heard a man say quite recently, there are 4 holes in the head through which you can get knowledge, and only 1 through which you can give it out. And you better be careful about how you use the one through which you give it out. That's not a bad idea to keep in mind, is it? Talking too much. You know, in selling, most salesmen make the bad mistake of trying to do all the talking. The finest thing that a salesman can do is to ask questions and to get his prospect to start talking. I don't know anything that equals it. In the first place, you cater to the ego of the prospective buyer, making him think he's doing it. But more important than that, you're finding out exactly how his mind's working. And if it's not working along the lines that you want, you can turn the record over and play the other side. Change your tempo, just as I do, for instance, when I'm lecturing. If I see a single negative mind in an audience of 1,000, I can tell almost where it is. And I change my tempo immediately. And if I'm selling, I do the same thing. There's no use of going along and boring people with a talk when you know very well they're not getting it. You're just wasting your time until you know that you're in harmony with the person who's listening to you. Of all of the complex, mysterious, hard to understand realities of life, it's the human mind, how it operates, the things that can be accomplished with it by the individual himself. And generally speaking, one of the strange things that I found as I began to analyze these men of great achievement, that there's very, very little connection between schooling and success. I never, in all of my life, in all of my dealings with these outstanding men, I never found one that hadn't succeeded in almost exact ratio to the extent that he had failed somewhere along the line, oftentimes many times. Failure, defeat, adversity can be a great blessing. When a man learns to take his adversities, his defeats, his unpleasant circumstances, and to weave them into something useful, then he's on the high road to success, believe you me. Because in the very nature of things, the Creator has designed it so that no man can go through life without some defeats, and without some unpleasantness, and without some failures. It's planned. Nobody can bypass that. And I'll tell you another thing. I find that the people that get the most out of this course the quickest are the ones that have had a lot of defeat, because they come to recognize that they don't have all of the answers. They need some help from the outside. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, how to do anything for anybody that doesn't want something or doesn't need something. This philosophy would be of no value whatsoever to anybody who doesn't need something, who doesn't want anything.
If you want true success in your life, you are well on the way to achieving it with the science of personal achievement and the 17 universal principles of success. Remember to listen frequently to these recordings. It's inevitable that with each exposure, you'll find a new insight or understanding. And it's these flashes of insight that can lead to greatness. We'll close our program with a prayer that helped Napoleon Hill through many challenges, and a tip about remaining energetic and youthful.
I remain young by keeping busy in a labor of love, and by the habit of celebrating every birthday by taking off a year from my age instead of adding one. And I'm now back in my late 30s. But perhaps to speak more seriously, I close each day's labor with a prayer which keeps my store of blessings eternally filled, and I shall express that prayer now. O infinite intelligence, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom with which to make better use of the blessings with which I was endowed at birth, through the privilege of embracing my own mind and directing it to ends of my own choice. Amen.